Hey coaches, welcome to the Volley Pod, the podcast made by coaches for coaches.
I'm Race, and I'm here with my teammates, and today we get to kick things off.
Coaches, we know how much hard work you all put in, from planning practices to coaching on game day, and this podcast will help you do even better.
Yeah, whether you're looking for fresh drills, coaching tips, or just some real talk about what it's like in the gym, Coach Davis and Coach Tod have got you covered.
And trust us, as players, we can tell when a coach listens to the Volley Pod.
For real.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Volley Pod. How are you today, Todd?
Doing well, Davis. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Back at it. We have an email address, you told me.
We got an email address now.
We've only been in business for a couple of years now. The Volley Pod, we're so immersed in the sport that things like email address, those tech things, we're a little behind the times.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear more from the community. We know we got people listening. We have a great support group. We just want to get that dialogue going back and forth. And we'd love to get some questions from you guys, like topics.
The Volley Pod?
Yes, it actually is the volleypod at Gmail. Sorry, yes, it is.
Okay,
the volleypod.
The Volleypod
at gmail.com.
Okay.
That's right.
All
Yeah,
right.
so communicate with us that way. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And as always, on the Instagram, we keep posting stuff on that, aoc.thevolleypod. You can check out us there for updates or message us there as well. But yeah, it's awesome. We'd love to get some feedback. And we know you guys got great ideas too. So man, if you got a great idea, we'll bring you on the pod too. That'd be awesome. So let us know. Yeah.
Or things you want us to talk
Things
about.
to talk about. Absolutely. So cool.
Some content
Absolutely.
ideas. We'll get into it.
Absolutely. We've got a great community. And you, sir, are up on the skill of the week.
Okay, the skill. This is what I am titling a rotation primer.
Okay.
Okay, so we've talked about rotations, and I think even in the last pod, we talked about, signing out in rotation one. But what does that all mean? And when we get into these rotations, so I'm going to start with a series of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Question number one, I'm going to pose it to Coach Ransom. Number one, in what level of volleyball does rotation knowledge become an asset? So do I need to, if I'm coaching, middle school, do I need to know about rotations and rotation one and things like that?
So part of me wants to say immediately.
Okay.
I really do think immediately part of me wants to say that. But I also think probably like once you need to do something besides just rotate in a circle. So maybe like whatever level of play that it pops up. So maybe like 7th grade, something like that.
Well, depending on the level.
Right,
Because we
depending
know
on the
that,
level.
hey, you get in the open division, 7th graders or 13s or whatever.
Right.
They're really good. So, I mean, that's
Right.
it. But we're talking about just, you're at a middle school and you have a middle school team for a couple months or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm
it
going
may
to throw
not
out
be.
the idea that, hey, anytime you're rotating, the idea that you have different people that you're setting. So even if, let's say, anytime you have a setter and wait a minute, this person is playing left front and she's 4'2", and this person's playing left front and she's 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
Hey, the set can be closer to the 5'9" person than the 4'2" person. So
Right.
rotations are going to make a difference. But as far as the nomenclature and everything, that might not come till later.
That's a
But
good point.
as your team goes in, every time you rotate, things change.
That's
And
a
I
good
think
point.
teaching players about that early is important.
Okay.
So
That's
that's
a good
kind
point.
of
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So less technical,
and
but
let
more
it
understanding.
evolve with it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then, hey, when you have an offense and you go, wait a minute, we can't score just setting it to one person. We have to diversify this offense. Then learning the rotations and everything becomes important.
Okay. I love
Like
it.
that. Number
Nice.
two.
Okay.
Are there different systems? Is there in the rotations? Is there like an American system? Are we different than everybody, Davis?
There is a difference. But most people don't think there is, right?
Okay.
I don't think.
This isn't the Gulf of California.
The Gulf of Europe. I'm not 100% clear on all the differences. So
Okay.
what do you want to just tell everyone?
So the way that most people in the United States, and not everybody, but most people in the US talk about rotation. When you talk about rotation one, your setter is in right back,
Right.
in position
Okay.
one.
Right.
And then when your setter rotates to middle back, that's rotation two.
Right.
When your setter rotates again to left back, that's rotation three. In Europe, they use the position of the setter on the court as rotations. So row one is still when the setter's right back. But when the setter rotates to middle back, that's row 6. So that's their row 6. And then 5. So their row 2 is when the setter is now right front rather than middle back. So there is a difference.
Interesting. Okay. Nice. Yeah.
I was talking to actually Kirsten Booth, and she was saying that in her program, they use the European because when she first learned it, right, when she started coaching, she had a guy from Europe who was an assistant, taught her team that, and she's kept it for 20 years.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Kind of interesting.
That is cool.
Okay. Number 3.
Okay.
When people talk about, rotations, there is kind of a generic 5-1 system.
Right.
And we should probably talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
And so some of the terms that are used are these terms L1 and L2 and M1 and M2. What are those all about, Davis?
So those have to do with who is closer to the setter in the rotation.
Okay.
Right. So the M1 and the L1 are the middle hitter that is closest to the setter in the rotation. And the L1 is the setter that is closest to the setter in the rotation.
Why does it even make a difference?
So you're going to play differently because in certain rotations, you're going to be in the front row setter, and certain rotations you be coming with the back row setter. So it'll be either 2 hitters or 3 hitters, depending on the rotation. So in row 4, 5, and 6 in the American system, it would be 2 hitters, and in row 1, 2, 3, it would be the 3 hitters. So, they're going to have different roles. So right.
Putting those and putting your best attackers usually, and once again, if we're taking out the idea of back row attack right now. If we're just talking about front row attackers, in the classic system, you would say, wait a minute, I'm going to put my best 2 hitters next to the setter because they're going to be in 2-hitter rotations more often than what we call the M2 and the L2.
Right.
And the M1 and L1 are going to be in 2-hitter rotations 2 times, and L2, M2 only once in 2-hitter rotations.
Right.
And so that's why you think, wait a minute, I want my best hitters to get more sets. So let's put them just with the setter where the right side is not taking sets away from those hitters.
Yes. And to go back to sort of your point on this, I don't think the kids know this, right? They're like, meaning I don't know they know what M1 or M2 is all the time.
Teaching that, and that's why we're talking about it right now, because coaches should learn about it.
Exactly, right? Just opening up this dialogue is key, right? Absolutely.
And along with that, now that we know what M1, L1, L2, M2 are, the most common rotation when we talk about this usually has our setter leading the L1.
So as they rotate,
we have the setter is in right back, and then the L1 is in right front. Right. So that setter is ahead, and then the middle would be middle back. And the reason for that is it makes serve receive much easier as far as stacking. And that is assuming that our best passers are L1, L2, and libero.
Right. Because that way the setter will not have to run in from the back row.
Right.
Because those typically are outsides, and our libero will be the passers, right? And if they're not, if the oppo is the best passer,
then you might have a different system.
Yeah, they have to break in. It's harder.
Next one. When we talk about rotations and we talk about, rotation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is it different with a 5-1 and 6-2? What's the difference?
So in 5-1, there's basically 6 different rotations, and in 6-2, there's 2 sets of 3 of the same rotations.
Right. So 1, 2, and 3 is repeated.
Right.
So 4 is really 1 with just different personnel.
Right.
And 5 is 2 with different personnel.
Exactly.
And 6 is 3 with different personnel.
Right.
So when we talk about rotations in a 6-2, those are just mirrored. 4, 5, and 6 are exactly like 1, 2, and 3.
Right. Which is, interestingly, like my team's been in the 6-2, so they don't know the difference between 3 and 6. You know what I mean? Right. So they just, I'll be like, go to 3 and go to 6, and they'll just stay in the same one, basically. So yeah, it's funny. So we're learning.
Yeah. And then lastly, and this was something that I learned probably, I don't know when I started, but I coached a long time before I could really think of rotations in my head and get a picture.
Right.
I think that the best coaches have that. So when they talk about row 1, I have a picture in my head now of row 1. So let's talk about the considerations of each rotation. So row 1, we have our setter in right back. My first thing is, hey, serve, receive, attacking. And that's kind of where always things start, right? Because that's the first thing that's going to happen. And what do you do with that opposite hitter? So what it means in row 1, your right side or your opposite attacker is in left front. And maybe that person is left-handed. Maybe that person is great attacking on the left as a lefty, but maybe that person is horrible attacking on the left. And then you have to have her hit some, or hit him hit somewhere else. And what do those routes look like? And so when you talk about, you'll hear teams go, oh, I got stuck in row 1. Okay. One of the common remedies, of course, is to stack. So you put all of your hitters over on that left side of the court. But then now you have this congestion and you have to have routes, and you'll see sometimes they'll have, that right side run along the net to run over to the right side. Sometimes they'll run around behind the court to go to the right side. But that is an issue. Something that isn't as common to think about is the idea. Next, before we get into that, let's talk about staying or switching.
Okay.
So let's say your right side is going to stay on the left and attack. When the ball goes over the net, do they switch over to the right, or you just leave her over there? So that's a question. And we always, in our program, we like the idea of players doing different things. So for the first 2 months of the season, we'll always try to stay. Okay. And even if they're uncomfortable, I'm not good. And we go, stay, get better, get better at it, and just play there. And then that allows us to match up later in the season. If somebody's a better blocker and they have a better hitter, then we can go, hey, just go play right, because we need your block right.
I love that. And the other thing I mentioned with that real quick is then they learn the other positions, because they will get stuck where they have to stay sometimes, right? I feel like in games. So it's like if you can teach them to stay and then they learn everyone's job, that's super beneficial sometimes.
One of the things I want to talk about with rotations to look at that a lot of people don't do in serve receive is coverage routes.
Oh, interesting.
So
it's a good call.
In row 1, your libero is, if your libero is in for your middle, and let's say playing left back, she'll pass middle back. But then when you go to coverage, left back is passing on the left side of the court, right? So the coverage system, because left back isn't, the left back player is your L2, is a back row person. So are they going to cross when they cover, or what are the lines for coverage? And that has to be delineated there when we talk about coverage. Some teams will say, no, my libero is always going to run over the line and cover. Even from right back, when she passes on the right side, that's a long way to go. And if there's a pipe attack that's running through the route of a pipe attacker. So that's something to think about in all of the rotations. So that's row 1, row 1. And row 2. So now our setters in middle back, our normal thing that you see most teams do is what we call a right stack. So they'll put that middle front person who is your opposite over on the right side of the court with your middle blocker, and that right side will come out of there, but you have this kind of congestion on the right front part, and it's not comfortable for a middle, because if a middle is right-handed and they're stuck on the right side of the court, it's harder to run a quick over there. And so we've played around with just having our opposite run a quick and leaving that
middle to hit
that middle over to hit the right. And saying, hey, we want players to be more flexible and more adaptable to do different things. That's so that row 2 could be an issue, and that could be susceptible to short serving, right?
That's a good call, for sure.
And so that's something that if we talk about considerations for row 2, hey, we have to practice against short serves to area 2 and 3.
That's a good call, for sure.
And then do you add back row attacks? And your back row attack is in row 2 now, your L1 is back row attack. And she's going to be passing on the right. So could she hit a D back there, a back row attack on the right side? Or does she have to run a route to get to the middle of the court, which means your other players have to know that to stay out of her way?
Right. Okay. Awesome.
So row 2. Row 3. So now your setter is in left back. And to get your setter, you can get your setter. This is a great thing about this formation that you talked about before. And the reason we want that setter leading the L1 is that in row 3, our setter can not only push up to the net, push that middle close to the net, they can move all the way to the middle as long as they stay to the left of the libero, who's going to be passing in the middle of the court.
Right. Okay.
So taking care of overlaps in this rotation is probably the first consideration. making sure they don't get lazy there, because that's where refs call overlaps in row 3 probably more than any other rotation.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Now your libero is in right back passing normally. And what is her coverage route? So if the ball is set outside, how is coverage set up? For the quick attack, where our libero, once we're in transition, our libero is usually going quick attack coverage if it's in the middle of the court to coverage on the left. So it is, looking at those coverage lines is important. All right. So those are the first 3 rotations, back row setter.
Okay.
Once again, if we're in a 6-2, we would just mirror those for 4, 5, and 6, but we're not. We're in a 5-1. So now we're in row 4. Our setter is left front. And our setter usually gets pinned in that left front and has to run out of there. It's probably the first consideration. This is probably one of the toughest penetration challenges for our setter.
Yes, because not only do they have to run far, they have to flip around.
Right.
And yeah, this is the toughest.
So they have to run out of left front and then turn around and face back left, right? Usually we have a stack there. Anytime we have this front row stack, we're susceptible to short serves, so we have to practice serves going now to area 4 and 3, because when people leave an area and it's not covered.
Right.
So it's kind of, once again, we have coverage routes. This could be a dumping rotation, because remember, row 4, if your L1 is your best attacker by far, say way better than L2, then this might be a rotation. It's the 2-hitter rotation with your worst outside attacker.
So you want to pick up the setter as an offensive option.
Right. So this might be a time, if it's your weakest offensive rotation, when your setter is going to be more aggressive. So that might be something to think about as far as a consideration.
Can I give one little thing for this one right here? So between 3 and 4, there is a way to make it appear as if the setter is still back row. And I've had this work often, and all you do is mostly in row 4, the setter runs along the net. You just have them slide back a step and go between the middle and the passers.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's a little
faking
slide.
Them out.
Yeah, we're trying to get innovative with Mike Shanahan. Yep, absolutely. So no, just a little one.
I like it. The other thing I think we have to think about is, when we get in row 4, the opposite now is back row. And can that opposite pass? Or do you have a sub that can pass? And once again, to give you flexibility in serve receive.
Right.
To move some people around.
Well, and to that point, even if that opposite is just as good as the front row outside, it could still be better, because then you can relieve that outside to go hit. Right. And so a lot of times,
and it might be easier to get your libero in the middle of the court. Let's say your libero is your best passer.
Yeah,
it gives you more flexibility, and I like that. I'm a fan of getting my best passer in the middle of the court, taking a big chunk of the court.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Okay. The last thing is, if let's say you have an opposite or even a DS that isn't in serve receive, a non-passing back row player that's what we call hiding. That player has to be trained.
Right.
You don't want that player getting pegged.
Oh my goodness.
There's nothing more embarrassing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My girlfriend in high school, she was inconsolable for months. It was like CIF, I don't know, semifinals, and she turned a duck and didn't slide out of there right away. She just kind of stayed in the seam calling, ducked and hit her on the butt, and that was how they lost them.
Oh, they lost the match.
Oh my
hit
goodness.
On the butt.
So it's little things like that get you.
Oh.
Right? It's so we got to lock in on
You
that.
didn't remember it all these years.
Yeah, I know. After all this time.
It's right there. Yeah. So, and having, I think that non-passer calling in and out, and the first thing we tell them is get out of the line of the serve. So that's your first job.
That's a good call, yeah.
Okay. Row 5 is setter's middle front now. Now you have your L1 comes into the front row. So it gives you flexibility. You have your 2 best hitters, though your middle is coming from behind the setter. What kind of route you're going to have? You're going to have them run slides in there in those routes, and they run slides to spread the net when you're in 2 hitters. How do you do that? Once again, I think if you're running slides, you're thinking of, okay, teams are going to try to have some tactics against that. They're going to serve area 2. What's your remedy for that when they serve area 2 when you're running a slide? The coverage is pretty standard in row 5. And then we go to row 6, setter in right front. Now your M2 is in the front row coming out of middle front. I'm sorry, left. Your M2 is stacked in left front and your L1 is passing on the left. So those are all the things to kind of think about when we talk about these rotations. And now I have a picture in my head. I've been doing it long enough, but I'd probably been coaching, it's probably 15 years in before I really got a picture in my head.
Yeah, it really is interesting, and there's tons of value to being able to talk about it with your team too, right? So just having this dialogue and opening up these, like just having the vocabulary to discuss things with your team is so key. So I think that's awesome. I had one more thing on this. So one of the things I had success with one of my youngest, most successful like youth teams, like just brand new teams, I taught them how to rotate by just teaching them the rules of rotating. So like the overlap rules.
Yep.
And then I had them hold ropes and kind of be in a circle. And then they kind of feel how like they're supposed to go around that way. I don't know. It's just a little kind of thing. It's just like, I think some of the times they try to remember it by rote. It's like in row 1, I stand here, I stand here. Right. But if they could also understand relationally.
The concept.
Relational
concept. I think that's big.
Yes, yeah. So
yeah. Awesome. I put hats on setters.
Okay, that's cool. Nice. That's awesome. So I've also we're like, okay, we give someone a little, one of those stretchy bracelets if they're front row. And then so if they have a front row on, they're gonna be standing, in front of the person that's obviously back row. I don't know, just little stuff like that where they can like kinesthetically feel it, I think can be beneficial too. So
all right.
Awesome.
I like it.
Real quick, our sponsor is amazing. We're always sponsored by Art of Coaching Volleyball. They've been incredible. And we're also sponsored by Ball Time. And I just want to say 2 things about Ball Time real quick. And I'll let you do the one, but I'll do the they keep adding new stuff, right? And then some of it's just so cool and some of it's just fun. And they added this St. Patrick's Day set trajectory thing. St. Patrick's Day was, I don't know, a week ago or so. And I don't know, I just thought that was cool because like the kids use it to put it on their social, right? And it's got this like it looks like an actual rainbow with a pot of gold in it at the end of the trajectory. So I don't know, it's just cool stuff like that. And then they had another really cool one too.
Yeah, no, I think we mentioned it in the last pod too, where they can differentiate. And I think it's in beta testing right now. They're differentiating between bump sets and hand sets. So you could isolate really a bunch of your out of system stuff and take a look at that. They're in the volleyball community. They're volleyball people. So they get feedback and they get requests and they go to work on them and they just keep making the product better and better.
Yeah. So cool. Check them out at www.balltime.com. They got great stuff.
All right. And that takes you to the scenario. What do you got today?
So today I'm going to talk about BFSPS, Big Fish, Small Pond Syndrome.
Big Fish, Small Pond Syndrome. I like it.
Okay. If you coach long enough, you will probably have to deal with this scenario. And by deal with, I mean, it's just part of the game where like we're all on every team. There are differently talented players, right? And a lot of times as people
that talent continuum can be small or it can be big, and it can be big and small in different places and big in different places,
right? And so some of the times you'll get either a kid that believes she's the big fish in the small pond and maybe she's not, or she actually is the big fish in the small pond. And by that I mean like, just her talent level is beyond the others. So let's start with that. So that's sort of the definition of what it is. But then I think where the syndrome stems from is this belief that you have to play with better people to get better, right? You have to play better volleyball to get better.
Right.
And I do think that there's some truth to that.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So I think that they're not wrong by feeling that. So that's the first thing I want to say. I think a lot of times as coaches, we're like, you think you're better than everyone? It's like, well, okay, I want to get better and I want to feel. Some of the people, they want to feel as if they're not the best player on the team, right? So if they are, they'll feel like they're too big fish and they're not feeling as much support. So I guess what I'm saying is like, there's the difference between being that and feeling like they're the big fish. And look, if a player's not really getting enough support to play the type of volleyball they want to play, that is an issue, and we'll talk about that. But there's also the issue of feeling as if they're not. And I guess what I mean is a lot of times they're not way better than everyone. And they are getting the support that they need, just maybe not to the level they expect or something. And that's how the syndrome expresses itself. It's like, I'm kind of better than this. Like, you guys aren't good enough to make me get better to the, or
Right.
help me win, whatever.
Right.
And I wanted to share with you guys a great quote. Mary Jo Pepler, the amazing Hall of Famer, right, said this to me one time. She said, a girl was kind of saying, like, I feel like I'll be too good for this team. And Mary Jo said this to this parent. I thought it was incredible. She said, I was the best player on every team I've ever been on for my entire career. And I turned out pretty good, right? And it's true. When you think about it in that way, that's exactly, like, you're not born the greatest. You make yourself the greatest. And I guess what I'm saying is, I think there's so many situations where this belief that they're the alpha, or the big fish in the small pond, if they challenge themselves in the right way, and this is where coaches can help them, then they can actually get a ton out of it, and they can feel as if they're being challenged and getting a ton better, right? And we've talked about some of these things, but like taking more court, or just more responsibility, or more swings, or just being able to play 6 rotations.
Right. But if we look at it, Davis, your daughter now is, continues to grow up now and takes on a personality, and you start thinking, okay, what are those situations I want to put her in that are going to allow her to grow and develop and find her sense of self. And I think when you think of team sports, it's one of the ways that kids can grow.
Absolutely.
And what I try to tell, kids and parents is, you want to have this whole range of roles that are going to allow you to experience it.
Right.
There's times when it's good that you're maybe the least experienced person on the team, where you have to fight and claw for playing time.
Right.
But you might improve the fastest because you're playing with better players.
Right.
There are times when you're going to be the best player on the team, and now you have to have a big leadership role. 100%. You wouldn't have a big leadership role when you're the least experienced player on the team. Right. But when you're the most experienced player, hey, you're responsible now for more than yourself. And Absolutely. That's a good situation for you to be in.
I think
and sometimes it's good for you to be right in the middle, where you're just kind of fighting and battling. And so telling kids, wait a minute, every year is going to be different. You're not going to be in the one that everybody wants, which is, wait a minute, I want to be in a position where I'm the second best player on the team, and I get set more than the best player on the team, but I have no leadership responsibilities.
Exactly. Right.
It's just all about me.
Right. There's challenges that come with every role, right? Exactly.
Right? And so the idea that people want this kind of ideal role, it's not, we have to teach them that, wait a minute, let's be realistic here. It's good to have all these different roles. That's how you're going to grow and develop your sense of self.
I think that's such a great point. No, I love that. And so really quick to that point, I just heard this great conversation with Pat Bev, the great basketball player. Yeah.
He's so funny.
He's so funny.
He's in that.
And he's hilarious. And in the NBA, he's thought of as a lockdown defender. I think he said the most points he's ever had is like 10 points in a game. But I didn't know this. He averaged 37 points in high school. He led the state. Yep. And I guess what I'm saying, he can shoot, he can make plays, but like the role you're in will change, and it's okay, right? And I think you're right, by not accepting, but just embracing the challenge of that role, you're going to get the most out of it, right? And so I think that's a really good point.
Right.
Yeah. So, and they're going to be in different points, right? So next, okay, can you actually, as a coach, give them more responsibility if they're starting to feel like they are that way? But again, I think usually it's a perception issue. But if they're starting to feel like, okay, I'm got this. First of all, they probably don't, right?
Well, let's assume they do.
Let's assume they do.
Let's just assume they do, because if there is a situation where they're really not a big fish and they think they are, then you have a different job.
Right.
And your different job is to say, hey, these are our numbers. These are the ways that we do it. Whether you have stats or however you do it, then that is one issue. But they're really not a big fish then.
Right.
They're just another fish swimming around, and maybe they've overeaten a little bit, but they're not the big fish. Okay.
That's right.
So let's get off of that. And let's just say, what do we do with the big fish?
Right. So I would say a couple of things. I would say you try to expand their role, especially, right?
I love it.
So expand their role in terms of, especially in terms of leadership, right? And sometimes you can do it as far as the expectation of which balls they take, right? Meaning they can take more court, literally.
Definitely.
But a lot of times it can be because a lot of times we get the game's too fast for that, right? But then it could be like, I want you to make sure that you're responsible for our communication.
Yep.
Right. I want you to make sure that we come into the middle all the time.
All that
stuff
good.
is awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, and then the obvious load of having to produce at a higher expectation is the other thing too.
In critical situations.
In critical situations.
You're going to be set.
That's a great
when it's
point.
15 all.
Yes. Right.
And everybody knows it.
Exactly.
The other team knows it.
Yes.
We know it. The parents know it. The coaches know it.
Right.
And that's the pressure there. And that's good for you. And You're not going to have that if you play on the other team that's better that you want to play on.
That's right.
They're not going to set you.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
So you have this new challenge that you're not going to get on that team.
Right. And just this is the last thought on that. And then I'm sure you have some great stuff on this. Like, I think there's this attitude amongst the parents and everyone that if I'm not playing on, and I coach for one of the biggest clubs in the country, but like one of the biggest, best clubs or one of the biggest, best teams, that I'm not going to get good. And that is just absolutely not the case. I guess the reason I bring that up is, you make your experience, right? The list goes on and on of the people that have not started off at a, top club or had the list, whatever, and they end up at Penn State or whatever. And I was just hearing the list of the where they played club, everyone that's on the Penn State roster. And a lot of the kids are smaller clubs. About half are, what I would consider either mid-majors or smaller clubs. And there was even a kid that had not even played club at all on there. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, make the most out of your experience to the best that you can, and then just keep doing it. And then the final thing I would say is, like, if the kid is just legitimately really, really feeling as if they're too big for their britches, you've done some of these things, I would encourage them to just wait till the end of the season, and then we'll reevaluate. Meaning, you just play as hard as you can, and we'll do the best we can with that. And then at the end of the season, we'll reevaluate. Maybe we move you up a year if they really are too big.
Right, but
stuff like that.
I think we can be flexible too.
That's a good
And the idea of, hey, if you have a twos kid, let's say you're coaching the coach twos, and this kid comes in, and maybe she isn't doesn't have that much experience coming in, but you coach her up, Davis. You're a great coach, and all of a sudden, halfway through the season, she's better than a bunch of the players on the ones team, and she's made this quantum leap. And then, she's going, wait a minute, I should go play with the one. People are going, oh, you shouldn't play with those guys anymore. You should go play with the ones. And you go, hey, listen, you've got to the point where you're at that level. That's super cool. But now, because you were inexperienced, you still have to learn how to lead.
Yeah, right.
So you're going to do that, but I'm going to get you into a couple practices with the ones just so you can have that experience. I'm going to talk to the ones coach.
I like that.
And so you try to do both, and you try to acknowledge the fact. You mentioned it earlier that, hey, one way to get better is to play with better people. And so, a lot of times in club, you make it either all or nothing. And my feeling is, wait a minute, just go practice with them.
Yeah.
Come on, play
That's
with
a good
us.
call.
And do both. Get the best of both worlds.
I think that's
So if you practice with them and then we set you at the end of every game, then you're getting the best of both worlds.
I think that's awesome. And like you mentioned, like, you want to play with better people. Other better people want to play. Other people want to play with you, so you can make them better.
Right.
So when you're on that role as the twos team or whatever, do your best, make the most out of it, and then get the most out of you can out of other experiences too. So I think
we deal with that a lot, Davis. Just because if you're a high school coach and you have your best JV kid, right? Your best JV kid thinks they should be on varsity.
Right. Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so how do you do that? And we go, hey, wait a minute. You're going to play JV, but then, when we practice Saturdays, you guys don't practice. You come practice with us.
That's cool.
End of the season, we're going to call you up to varsity, and you're going to practice with us.
Oh, floaters.
But during the season, when it's 15 all, we're setting you every single time.
Right.
And you're learning how to lead, because you can't learn how to lead as a freshman or sophomore on varsity with the players we have.
I think
but you can learn that on JV, and you got to learn it.
That's a great reminder. And people got to kind of pay their dues, so to speak.
Yeah.
You got to kind of work your way up, and it takes time. So no, I think that's all really
I think it's a great topic. I really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are up on the videos today.
The videos. The cool thing, we mention this all the time about AOC, is like, I've never gone onto AOC to look at rotation stuff.
Right.
But when I went to find videos, there's so much great stuff.
Yes,
and they haven't even divided by rotations. They're saying,
really?
hey, siding out in row 2. This is great.
Okay,
So,
nice. Okay.
It's great. So anyway, the first one is just kind of a more of an overall picture. Mark Barnard, understanding rotations. Next one is a rotational side out drill from Russ Rose.
Okay, cool.
So he goes through all the rotations going up. We got a side out here, we got a side out here, we got a side out here, and just kind of looking at siding out on each rotation.
Okay.
And then the last one is offensive and defensive strategies for row 1. This is Diane Flick-Williams and Mark Bernard going back and forth to how they deal with row 1.
Oh, interesting.
So,
and I'll say that, I just was going to add this during the rotation talk. It's like problem solving row 1 is probably just the key one. Like the others kind of figure themselves out for the most part, but 1 seems to be tricky. And I see most of the teams doing 3 stack. And I don't think it's the most ideal solution. I think there's better ways to deal with it, but it just seems what most teams are doing.
Yep.
But anyways, that's my hot take on
all
that.
right.
So, all right. So I'm up on the resources.
What do you got?
So recently I've been thinking a lot about concussions, and I just included 2 resources about concussions today. So I did the JVA Concussion Info, and this is basically like what to do like right on the time of concussions.
Yep.
And then I also put the CDC Concussion Protocol, and this is for like more like going forward. So after they get concussed.
And there's some new studies coming out. There's some new science, I think, saying that, hey, you shouldn't just go in a dark room and stay away anymore, that you need to kind of get out a little more than the old style. Did you get into any of that?
I didn't, not too much, but you're absolutely right. I guess what I would point out is this, like some of this stuff is changing.
Yep.
Some of it they're finding out is volleyball is more dangerous than they thought. Like people get concussed a little bit more often actually quite a bit more often than they thought. It's like a medium risk concussion. And you don't think of volleyball as like being that, but yeah. And I guess the other thing they found out is like how lightly you need to get hit to get a concussion.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff. And we had a concussion on my team recently. I've been thinking a lot about it lately. And I mean, I've seen people get blown up and they don't get concussed. I've seen people get hit just the wrong way.
I've gotten blown up.
Oh, absolutely. I've gotten blown up many times. Oh, absolutely.
Just coaching, right?
Oh, yes.
And just taking one on the side of the head, just from the other side of the gym or something.
Yes. Oh my goodness, right?
Right.
You're just like, can't see. But like the reason I brought it up is like, if you just do a little bit of effort towards organizing your practice, you can decrease your risk dramatically.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
one of the studies, I wasn't able to put it in the show notes, but it basically said like most of the concussions practice in the training environment. So practice, right? And it's because we're trying to get everyone on one court. We're trying to get multiple balls flying. But if you can just arrange your court, and that's literally why I thought it is. So if that's an important skill, keep your players healthy and safe and don't get them concussed. It's the only real injury risk in volleyball besides some like sprained ankles and stuff like that. So anyways, that'll be in the show notes. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, Ball Time. You can check them out at www.balltime.com and Art of Coaching Volleyball. They're wonderful. They got tons of great coaching resources.
We have socials.
We got our socials. AOC.thevolleypod is our Instagram. Check us out there. And once again, thanks. We'll look forward to
And finally, email.
Our new email address, thevolleypod@gmail.com. Absolutely get in contact with us. We'd love to talk to you anytime. We're volley nerds. We'd love to speak with you some volley. And once again, thanks, Tom.
Well done, Davis. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.